Chapter 31, Adele, Become Lear's Lover. Lear, how dare you attack Adele? Eric, who was sitting in a wheelchair, was furious, and the waiter who was pushing the wheelchair also had an embarrassed expression on his face. The waiter also knew Lear and Eric, the two sons of great nobles who had just dueled for the princess's engagement not long ago. One wanted to steal the other's princess fiancée, and the other attacked the other's sister. He could only say that the young nobles really knew how to have fun. Looking at the pretty beauty beside Lear, the waiter showed an envious look. He could only dream of having close contact with such a noble beauty. The noise in the corridor attracted the attention of many nobles in the banquet hall. Duke Norton recognized that it was his son's voice. He frowned, said "Excuse me" to the noble next to him, and walked towards the direction of the voice. This time, many nobles had gathered there. When Duke Norton came over, some nobles made way for him, and Duke Norton saw Lear and Eric confronting each other. What surprised him was that his daughter Adele was standing behind Lear, and her behavior was somewhat intimate. "Lear, do you want to humiliate me so much?" Eric gritted his teeth. He thought that he had tried to snatch Lear's engagement before, so Lear attacked Adele as a revenge against him. It's just that he didn't win the duel, but looking at Adele's shy look, his sister must have been tortured by Lear. Although he doesn't like his sister very much, it is still a shame. "Eric, please don't slander me. I just had a friendly exchange with Adele. We are both nobles, so this should be a normal behavior." Lear saw what Eric was thinking and put his arm around Adele's shoulders with a wicked smile. Adele also acted obediently, not because she liked it, but because Lear had the upper hand over her. "That's right. That's it. Do you think I'm an idiot?" Eric was so angry that he was shaking all over. Just when he wanted to argue, Duke Norton came over. "Enough." Duke Norton scolded and looked at Eric with a hint of disappointment in his eyes. Ever since the last duel, Eric's emotions have been easily out of control. He has been in a daze all day long and no longer has the composure that an heir of the Norton family should have. Eric's mage level has also dropped a lot, and his talent has become much worse. Recently, Duke Norton has begun to consider whether to create another small account. Eric's account is basically useless. Faced with his father's scolding, Eric was stunned for a moment and wanted to say something, but he saw the sharp eyes of Duke Norton, stopping Eric from arguing further. Duke Norton looked at Lear and Adele. "Adele, aren't you coming back yet?" he said expressionlessly, and it was impossible to tell whether he was happy or angry. Adele bit her lip and could only walk obediently to the Duke of Norton. "Stuart boy, shouldn't you explain to me?" Duke Norton stopped Adele behind him and continued, "What did you do to my daughter?" "Your Excellency the Duke, I just had a friendly exchange with your daughter. I really didn't do anything." Lear shrugged. The nobles around all showed amused expressions, and no one believed what Lear said. Facing such a beautiful girl, how could nothing happen when the two of them were alone in a compartment? Ivian in the crowd gnashed her teeth. She had repeatedly stressed to Lear not to mess around, but now he had messed around with the Duke of Norton's daughter. It was really outrageous. Everyone was looking at the Duke of Norton's reaction. His own daughter was harmed by the son of his archenemy. Although the kingdom's customs were open, they were too open. Duke Norton was silent for a long time. He did not get angry as everyone imagined. Instead, he said calmly, "I hope what you say is true." After saying that, Duke Norton actually led Adele and Eric away. Everyone looked at each other in surprise. This was completely different from what they had imagined. Lear also frowned. The banquet ended in a strange atmosphere, and Lear was caught by Avian and interrogated thoroughly. The Duke of Norton and his son and daughter were sitting in the carriage, and the atmosphere was a bit depressing. After a long while, he suddenly said to Adele, "Adele, what do you think of Lear?" Adele was stunned for a moment. "Father, you don't have to consider my relationship with the Duke of Stuart. Just based on your own thoughts, what do you think of Lear?" Duke Norton waved his hand and continued to ask. Now not only Adele, but even Eric noticed that something was wrong. "Father, you don't want to..." Eric seemed to have thought of something and spoke quickly. "Shut up." Duke Norton interrupted Eric before he could finish. He glared at Eric, then looked at Adele, his eyes becoming gentle. "It's okay, Adele, just say whatever you think." Adele hesitated for a moment, then expressed her opinion of Lear. "I think Mr. Lear is very gentle and handsome." Hearing this, Eric suddenly raised his head and stared at Adele. How could his own sister speak of his enemies like this? Compared to Eric's reaction, Duke Norton was much calmer, and he seemed to have expected it. After a smile, the Duke of Norton asked again, "Do you like Lear?" "Father, haven't you already betrothed Adele to Fedor?" Eric finally couldn't help but interrupt. "To Fedor? Is that rubbish who blasphemed the golden saint worthy of my daughter?" Duke Norton snorted coldly. That's not what you said when you accepted Count Bauer's gift yesterday. Eric couldn't help but complain in his heart. Duke Norton looked at Adele again. When he saw Adele and Lear together today, he had an idea in his mind. He looked at his daughter seriously. Adele, you go be Lear's lover. What? Adele's eyes widened. She couldn't imagine that these were the words her father would say. Eric on the side was also stunned. You go and be Lear's lover, the Duke of Norton repeated. Adele was stunned for a while before she responded, but Lear and Her Royal Highness are engaged. So what if you have an engagement? Which noble doesn't have a few lovers? Duke Norton said disdainfully. Adele opened her mouth, unable to refute. Even her father, the Duke of Norton, had many lovers. You don't have to feel wronged. I heard a secret at the banquet just now. Princess Milia is missing and now we don't know whether she is dead or alive. The king concealed this matter. I'm afraid even the boy from the Stuart family doesn't know about it. So now is your chance. Go and seduce Lear, use your beauty, charm him, and make him fall in love with you. If you really like Lear, this is your only chance. Use your ability to firmly grasp Lear in your hands. What can the princess do? Duke Norton looked at Adele deeply, and finally he told her his purpose. Adele listened to her father's words and didn't react on the surface, but she felt very strange in her heart. Lear had set her up to undercover in the Norton family, and now her father asked her to seduce Lear? Chapter 32. Ophelia is very resentful. Please read it later. Late at night, Lear was lying on the bed, with Milia beside him with her back to him, like a bullied young wife. When he came back, maybe it was because she smelled the feminine scent on him that made Milia get a little upset. To end Milia's words, she had been waiting for Lear at home for so long, but Lear was out fooling around with other women. It was really too much. Lear was helpless about Milia's anger, but he didn't feel annoyed. Instead, he felt that Milia was quite cute. At least she really cared about him. Lear gently turned his body and hugged Milia tightly. The little princess struggled for a while, but gave up when she saw that she couldn't get free, but still turned her back to Lear. Lear didn't mind. He held Milia quietly and looked at the blood prisoner mask that turned into a ring in his hand. The system panel appeared in front of him. Please create a new identity, name, profession. It was not what Lear had imagined. He thought that when creating a new identity for the blood prisoner, he could customize a new character, but it turned out that only the name and occupation could be edited, nothing else. There is no face pinching or anything like that, which feels a bit useless. He entered the name, Munger. This was a game character he liked very much in his previous life. As for his profession, he could only choose a profession related to the blood law, so he filled in the blood apostle. After Lear completed the creation of his new identity, the bloody prisoner mask in his hand actually lit up with a bright red light. In his eyes, the prisoner mask returned to the appearance of a demon's head and was directly put on his head. The entire prison mask fit perfectly, as if it was his original head, but it did not hinder his perception. New identity has been generated. When wearing the blood prisoner mask, the displayed identity is switched to Munger, and the occupation is fixed to blood apostle. The original identity is automatically hidden and cannot be detected. Feeling the prison mask on his face, Lear roughly understood this ability, which was to create a new identity. When being explored by others, Lear's identity could no longer be discovered, and others could only see his new identity of Munger. And if you want to activate this identity, you must wear the prisoner mask on your head. For NPCs, wearing a prisoner mask may not change their identity much, but in the future, when players come, they will have detection skills and can detect the NPC's information. With a new identity, he can play two roles by himself, take off the mask and activate the shielding perception function of the prisoner mask, and the player will not be able to detect his information. He is the righteous heir of Stuart. After putting on the mask and cancelling the shielding function of the prisoner mask, the player discovered the leader of the heretical sect, Munger. You can do bad things openly. Lear nodded, very satisfied with the effect of the blood prisoner mask. Just as he was feeling the wonder of the blood prisoner mask, Milia, who was in his arms, turned over as if she was feeling uncomfortable. The little princess opened her eyes hazily and saw the devil's head with bloodshot eyes in front of her. Ah! A scream broke the silence of the night. Milia looked at the monster holding her with horror. What kind of monster is this? Where is Lear? She struggled hard to break free from the monster's arms, jumped off the bed, and looked around the room. Apart from the monster on the bed, she didn't see any other figure. You, who the hell are you? What did you do to Lear? Milia asked tremblingly. The first thing she thought of was not to escape, but where Lear had gone. Could it be that this monster had killed Lear? She didn't dare to think about it anymore. Lear was a little surprised. He took off the mask on his head and said with a smile, "So you're so worried about me? It seems I'm quite important to you." Milia was stunned. Looking at Lear lying on the bed, she didn't react for a moment. After a long while, she blushed and gritted her teeth and said, "You bastard. Who would worry about you?" The next day, Lear woke up alone in his bedroom. He was kicked out by Milia last night. He felt that he was innocent and it was not his intention to scare Milia. However, he did gain something from what happened last night. His affinity with the law of Morningstar, which had been stagnant, increased by 3% and now has reached 15%. He discovered that this level of affinity became increasingly difficult to improve as time went on. As his relationship with Milia became closer, ordinary affection and actions no longer caused the little princess to feel shy. Maybe we should go a step further. As he was thinking, there was a knock on the door of the room. "Master, are you there?" It was Eno's voice. "Come in," Lear said as he put on his clothes. Eno opened the door and walked in. "Master, this is the letter I received today from Fort Pharaoh." Lear was stunned for a moment after listening to the maid's words. Fort Pharaoh? Isn't that his hometown? Lear took the letter from Eno and opened it directly. After reading the words on the letter line by line, his expression became a little serious. This is a letter from his father, Albert Stuart, praising Lear for winning the duel with Eric, and that his father is preparing to come to the capital to see him. Lear felt a little overwhelmed. His father was coming to see him, so how was he going to explain Milia's matter? If my father knew that I believed in heretical laws, would he draw his sword and kill me? Another very important point is that he is no longer the original Lear. Will his adoptive father discover the secret? The opponent is a war knight of extraordinary level. Once the fight starts, Lear has no confidence in escaping. What a hassle. He scratched his head and thought it was time to search for some useful things, at least to ensure his own safety. Eno, get ready, let's go out for a walk together. Lear instructed the maid. After breakfast, the two of them went out under Milia's angry gaze. Lear took Eno towards the slums. Although he didn't know much about the plot of the royal city of Brayful, he still knew some of the powerful items and props. After all, players always pay attention to powerful props, equipment, and the like when playing games. The two soon arrived at the dirty slums. The roads were muddy and the ground was wet because it had just rained. The people around were all dressed in shabby clothes, and Lear and Eno, who were dressed in exquisite clothes, looked out of place here. Just as the two were walking towards the inside of the slums, Lear suddenly saw a figure when he turned the corner. The golden saint in white robes was leading a few golden cultists and was inspecting the slums. When both sides saw each other, they were stunned, but soon, Affinina reacted. She held the metal scepter, a smile on her face, and walked straight towards Lear. "I didn't expect to meet Stuart's heir here." Affinina extended her hand to Lear. Lear also extended his hand and shook it politely. "Your Highness the Saint, do you know me?" "Of course, I've read your information. I wanted to meet you at King Rosser's banquet before." Affinina said with a friendly smile. "Is that so? What a pity. Something unpleasant happened at that banquet." Lear pretended to be surprised, and then showed a harmless expression. "In fact, I have also read the story collection of the heretic nun Affinina. I didn't expect that it was a conspiracy to discredit Her Highness the Saint." "Your Highness, have you found the heretic who wrote those blasphemous words?" Lear asked. Listening to Lear's words, the smile on Affinina's face became stiff. It was really like bringing up something irrelevant. She had already tried hard to forget the contents of the story collection she had read, but now it was brought up again. The scenes in the story came to her mind, and a feeling of resentment rose involuntarily in Ophelia's heart. The golden law source material carrier's resentment emotional fluctuation value reaches 70%, and you gain 0.5% golden law affinity. Chapter 33, The Obedient Daddy's Boy. Please read on. Affinina was a little annoyed, but she still had to maintain the elegance of a saint. She looked at the man in front of her. He looked harmless, sunny, and handsome. He probably didn't mean to expose her shortcomings. "What's wrong, Your Highness the Saint?" Lear blinked innocently. "No, it's okay." Ophelia forced a smile. "Of course we will find the heretic who blasphemed the saint." On the side, Maury, who was watching Lear and Ophelia flirting with each other, couldn't help but speak out. Who is this?" Lear tilted his head. "My name is Maury. I am the guard of Her Highness the Saint. My father is Ur Pound, one of the high priests of the Holy See." Maury said proudly. So you're the guard of Her Highness the Saint. Well, you must be the kind of daddy's boy who listens to your father very much. You even bring him up when introducing yourself. Lear nodded thoughtfully. Poochie. Ufangina on the side couldn't help but burst out laughing. This was the first time she had heard the term daddy's boy, and it was quite easy to understand. Maury was stunned for a moment, and when he saw his secret crush by Egwene grinning, his cheeks suddenly turned red. What's wrong? Lear looked at Maury. I want to duel with you, Maury said angrily. Oh? Why? Did I do something to displease you? Lear shrugged. You? Maury wanted to say, but after thinking about it, he didn't know what to say. Okay, that's enough. At this time, Ophelia restrained the smile on her face and scolded Maury. Mr. Lear is a great nobleman in the kingdom. Maury, please don't be rude. Maury gritted his teeth, looked at Ophelia's eyes, and could only swallow his anger. Lear, what brings you to the slums? Ophelia looked at Lear with interest. Judging from the conversation between him and Maury just now, this man was obviously not a simple person. It was probably intentional that he mentioned the heretic nun to her before. What a man with a bad taste. But she didn't feel too disgusted. Of course I'm here to look for the corrupt sect that your majesty mentioned. A heretical sect has infiltrated the royal city. As a noble of the kingdom, I should certainly do my part. Lear casually found an excuse, his tone very formal. Ophelia smiled. She didn't believe what Lear said, but she didn't say much. As the three were talking, a ragged woman appeared on the other side of the street, holding her child, and stumbled towards Ophelia. When Maury saw this scene, his eyes widened. How could someone dare to bump into the saint in the street? He immediately stood up, blocked in front of Ufangina, and drew his sword. How dare a mere lowly person offend Her Highness the Saint? Maury felt that he was the knight protecting the saint, and the saint would see his heroic figure that he had finally stood out from so many competitors and obtained the qualification to accompany the saint. He wanted to let the saint understand his excellence and that he was worthy of her. Maury thought about it and glanced at Lear. Lear had just made him look bad, and now he would let Her Highness the Saint know how excellent he is, but what greeted him was Ophelia's displeased look. Maury, what are you doing? Put away your sword. Maury was stunned for a moment. This was completely different from what he had imagined. Lear had already walked up to the woman, leaned over and asked, Madam, what can I do for you? The woman, who was originally frightened by Maury's sword and dared not speak, felt much relieved after seeing the handsome Lear. Young master, please, and the saint lady must save my child. The woman began to cry. Only then did Lear see the child in the woman's arms. The child's face was grayish-green, and there were some cracks on the surface of the skin. Lear even smelled a slight stench. This is corruption. Ufangina walked to the woman and her face darkened when she saw the child. Corruption? Lear turned around. Yes, this is a method used by the pagans of the corruption sect. They will spread corruption in the city. The infected people will have their vitality constantly devoured, and eventually turn into evil undead spirits. Ufangina explained, I didn't expect them to act so quickly and have already planted germs in the slums. Lear frowned. This was the first time he heard of this corruption disease, and as for the corrupt sect, he had not heard of it during the public beta. Can corruption be cured? Lear asked. Yes. Ufangina nodded, but her expression was still not very optimistic. Corruption can be cured, but it is very difficult. Only a divine blessing used by high-ranking prayers can remove the corruption. High-level praying man? Lear was somewhat incredulous. High-level professions are already absolutely powerful. For example, Duke Norton is a high-level mage, and high-level prayers, as far as Lear knew, the only high-level worshippers in the royal city were the bishop of the Golden Cathedral and the one in front of him, Ophelia, and this is not the point. The blessing of the high-level prayer is a single-target skill with high consumption. It can clear all abnormal states on the target, restore all injuries and health, and has a long cooling time. Ufangina and the Golden Bishop can cure the corruption, but what should they do if more people are infected with the corruption? Your Highness, please save my child. I am willing to give everything. As if she had heard that it was difficult to cure the child's illness, the woman quickly knelt in front of Ufangina and knocked her forehead to the ground. Get up quickly, I will save your child. Eradicating heresy is the mission of the Golden Church. Afanina helped the woman up. As she spoke, she raised her scepter. Pick up your child, she said. Upon hearing this, the woman immediately held the child to her chest. A sacred golden light emanated from the scepter in Afanina's hand and enveloped the child in the woman's arms. Lear and Maury watched the scene. The former was expressionless, while the latter was a bit fanatical. For Maury, this is his belief. This is the golden saint he admires. Under the power of the golden law, the corrupt aura on the child was constantly being cleared away, and it seemed that the healing would be completed soon. But the next second, a strange smile appeared on the face of the woman sitting on the ground, and she threw the child in her hands directly towards Ophelia. Lear reacted immediately and reflexively put on a magic shield for himself, but Afanina was not so lucky. The child in the air emitted a dark mist and exploded directly. Thick black fog spread in all directions, and Afanina was blown away by the explosion, spitting out a mouthful of blood. She was flying in the air, and the heretical magic power generated by the explosion caused her to suffer the backlash of the law of divine blessing. The blood in her heart surged, and she lost the ability to move for a while. Fortunately, Lear was quick to catch Ophelia and landed her on the ground. Ha, damn Golden Church, one day the corrupt laws will come, and this city will become a hotbed of corruption. The woman on the ground roared like crazy, her skin kept falling off, and finally she turned into a horrible undead. The poor people who were watching on all sides saw this and fled in panic after a brief daze. Maury also reacted at this time. The first thing he thought of was Ophelia, who had just been blown away. He turned his head and saw the saint lying in Lear's arms with a rosy face. Lear, what are you doing to Her Highness the Saint? Maury rushed to Lear angrily. Lear ignored Maury's questioning. He took out the night rose, and the next second he appeared in front of the undead woman. The dark sword directly pierced the undead's head, causing it to explode. Chapter 34, Kidnapping the Saint. You killed the corrupted undead, and you gained 400 experience points. Afanina hugged Lear tightly, and it felt like a gust of wind passed by, and the dead woman was dead. She looked at the handsome face so close to her. There was no panic on his face, and all his actions were so clean and neat. Looking at his own guards, at this time, Maury also reacted. He watched Lear holding Ophelia and killing the undead with a knife. He was so jealous that he wanted to go crazy. This should be his job as a guard. Now the limelight has been completely stolen. And Lear is actually holding the body of the saint. He hadn't even touched Afanina's hand. Lear, let Her Highness the Saint go. Maury roared with red eyes. Lear ignored Maury's anger. His eyes were sharp. Now that Afanina had been hit back by the golden rule and was unable to move, an idea came to his mind. Just kidnap Afanina now and take her home to imprison her, just like you imprisoned Milia at the beginning. Including Maury, there are a total of 4 Golden Church believers, 2 mid-level professionals, and 2 entry-level professionals. With his ability, it is no problem to kill these 4 people. Moreover, all the poor people around had already run away, and the black fog produced by the explosion just now had very low visibility. He had every chance to take Afanina away without anyone knowing. Okay, Maury, it was Lear who saved me just now. If it weren't for him, I might have been injured. Afanina suddenly spoke up, as if she had regained some strength, and rubbed against Lear's arms. Looking at this scene, Maury was angry and jealous, but there was nothing he could do. Are you okay? Lear lowered his head and asked with a smile. I'm almost recovered. I was just accidentally attacked back at you. My golden law is quite special. I can recover after a while of the backlash. Ophelia said with a blush on her cheeks. Lear nodded, his expression unchanged. He gave up the plan of kidnapping Ophelia in his heart. The risk was too great. Even if he could kidnap Ophelia, the follow-up measures would still be a problem. Afanina is a professional with high-level strength, completely different from the delicate little white flower like Milia. Maury, go and inform His Majesty the King that the corruption cult has appeared in the slums. Ask him to immediately send professional guards to double the martial law. Once the poor infected with the corruption disease are found, they must be isolated first. Ufangina instructed Maury, who was standing beside her. Maury nodded. He also understood the seriousness of the matter, but he did not leave. He stood there hesitantly. What about you, Saint? Afanina smiled, looked at Lear, and winked playfully. Mr. Lear should be able to send me back to the Golden Church safely, right? Lear was stunned for a moment, then he also laughed. Of course, it's my honor. It seems that the search for powerful items and props will have to be put off for a while, he sighed inwardly. Maury could not disobey Afanina's order and could only go to the king unwillingly. However, he still left the remaining 3 golden cultists and asked them to follow Lear to protect the saint, and he repeatedly reminded him to keep an eye on Lear. They all left the slums together. Not long after they left, a crow flapped its wings on the roof and flew away into the depths of the prosperous royal city. The journey to escort Afanina back to the Golden Cathedral was peaceful, with Lear merely acting as a guard. After sending Afanina to the church, he declined her invitation to have lunch there and took Eno directly home. Duke Norton's mansion. On the tree outside the villa, a large crow was looking at a room in the villa. Eye in the sky, another smaller crow flew down and landed next to the big crow. "How's the matter going?" The big crow actually spoke in human language. "Sir, I met the Golden Saint of the Holy See. I wasted a mother body, but I also caused serious injuries to the saint." The little crow replied, "Didn't I tell you that everything we do is aimed at spreading corruption, and that you shouldn't be impulsive when you meet people from the Golden Church?" The big crow's tone was somewhat serious. The little crow was silent. After a long while, he said, "My brother died at the hands of the saint." The big crow didn't say anything else. He glanced at the little crow and finally said helplessly, "Forget it, the loss of a mother is a loss, but the plan must go on. I hope you won't let me down again this time." "I understand." The little crow responded, then flapped its wings and flew away. Until the little crow left, the big crow's eyes gradually became indifferent. "Brother? How ridiculous. The believers of the corrupt law only need to believe in corruption, and everything else should be abandoned. If you aren't still of some use." The crow shook its head, then flapped its wings and landed on the windowsill of the room in front. In the room, Duke Norton sat in a chair with an irritated expression. Ever since Eric lost the last duel, rumors began to spread among the nobles that Duke Stuart was preparing to return to the capital. To say that Lear's brilliance is the first step. If this is true, it will not be a good thing for the entire Norton family. The Stuarts are the oldest family in the kingdom, stationed in the border fortress of Faro. Since the founding of the kingdom, they have been fighting with the previous king in various battles, and the scope of their territory is incredibly large. Most of the area bordering the kingdom of Knox in the west of Brayfield was under the rule of Stuart, occupying almost 1/5 of the territory of the entire kingdom of Brayfield. It can be said to be a country within a country. The current Duke of Stuart is also very powerful. He is one of the few extraordinary professionals in the kingdom and believes in the laws of war. The current king was able to win the fight for the throne with the help of Stuart. After Rosser ascended the throne, the current Duke of Stuart, Albert, returned to the border fortress of Faro and no longer interfered in the affairs of the royal city. When Duke Norton came to Brayfield, he did a lot of things to belittle Stuart in order to vigorously develop arcane laws and enhance the strength of the family. As long as they can suppress Stuart, they can get great attention. Those common people are used to hearing the legend of Stuart, and they will naturally be attracted by the sudden appearance of a family more powerful than Stuart. As a result, Duke Norton recruited many talents, and finally, he defeated the Stuart guards who stayed in the royal city with the help of the mage corps he formed, and became completely famous. Arcane laws began to be taken seriously, and Duke Norton also gained the favor of the king. From then on, he began to rise rapidly in the career of the Duke of the Kingdom, and now he holds a high position of power. It can be said that everything he is now was obtained by stepping on the Stuart family, but he knew very well that his family's strength was no match for the Stuart family, and the guards he defeated were just the elite troops of the Stuart. The real Stuart is entrenched on the western frontier, a terrifying behemoth and a sleeping lion. Chapter 35. You need some help. Just as Duke Norton was thinking, the door of the room was suddenly pushed open. Duke Norton raised his head, somewhat displeased. He always hated being disturbed when he was thinking about something. He looked up and saw a fat woman pushing Eric in a wheelchair, followed by Adele. As soon as she entered the room, the woman burst into tears. She cried to the Duke of Norton, "How on earth are you a father, you bastard? Why did you do nothing when that little bastard from the Stuart family insulted my son at the banquet? You even wanted that little bitch Adele to be Lear's lover?" As the Duke of Norton listened to the woman's crying, his already irritable expression became even more irritable. "Vicente! Speak!" In the room, the obese lady was still crying, as if she had suffered some great injustice. Eric and Adele were both standing nearby, the former with a gloomy expression and the latter expressionless. The Duke of Norton frowned and looked at the fat woman in front of him. That was his wife. She looked very ordinary, even ugly. In order to develop rapidly in the early years, he married this woman, and with the help of her father, the Marquis, he was able to gain a foothold in the kingdom. Valerie, what happened at the banquet was just a misunderstanding. Lear didn't, Duke Norton sighed helplessly, but before he could finish, he was interrupted by a sharp shout. Misunderstanding? Vicente, do you know what you are talking about? That little bastard was laughing at my son. He was even showing off about the duel. My Eric was seriously injured, but the little bastard was gloating. As Valerie spoke, she hugged Eric and wiped her tears with her right hand. Duke Norton became even more annoyed by Valerie's crying, and said angrily in a cold voice, sad-face continuation, do you know why Lear laughed at Eric? Your precious son watched Adele being humiliated in public and was indifferent. Adele is his sister and also my daughter. It is my shame to be humiliated in public. Facing her husband's anger, Valerie was stunned for a moment. She didn't think Eric was wrong at all. Instead, she cursed, so what if Adele, this little bitch, is humiliated? She's just a bitch's child. She cried even louder. How dare you be so mean to me for the sake of a bitch's child? Have you forgotten who helped you gain a foothold in the kingdom? It was my father. You clearly promised my father that you would treat me well. It's the same again, every time she cries and whines, or she talks about the assistance her father provided in the early years. Duke Norton is tired of hearing it. Valerie cried. His expression gradually became cold. Since marrying Valerie, he has never treated her unfairly and has given her the dignity that a duchess should have. Even when Valerie poisoned Adele's mother to death, he didn't say a word. He had always been accommodating to Valerie because Eric was her son. Although Eric was ordinary in other aspects, his talent in arcane law was very strong, and Duke Norton had always trained Eric as his heir. But now, Eric is useless. Standing up from his chair, Duke Norton walked up to Valerie. Valerie looked up, expecting her husband to apologize as usual, but Duke Norton just reached out and patted her shoulder gently. Valerie was a little confused, but soon she felt sleepy and fell asleep on Eric's shoulder. Eric, your mother is a little tired. You and the maid should take her downstairs to have some rest. Duke Norton glanced at Eric, then called the two maids outside the door. Eric was stunned for a moment, and seeing his father's indifferent eyes, he seemed to understand something. He was silent for several seconds and nodded. The two maids, one holding Valerie and the other pushing Eric's wheelchair, gradually left the room. After the two left, Duke Norton looked at Adele on the other side and said, Adele, my daughter, what do you think about what I said yesterday? Continuation. Adele witnessed the Duke of Norton's behavior and heard his words, and remembered what her father said last night. Father, will Lear really accept me as his lover? Adele asked. She was not opposed to being Lear's lover, as it was better than being married to some nobleman she didn't know. Of course. My dear daughter, you must have confidence in your charm. Duke Norton nodded immediately. Adele inherited her mother's beauty and is naturally beautiful. Then I'll give it a try. Adele nodded. After receiving the answer, Duke Norton showed a satisfied expression. Very good, in this case I will allow you to leave the house at any time in the future, and you can also ask the butler for a certain amount of money. Well, Eric won't bully you anymore, and the same goes for Valerie. Duke Norton stated the conditions that he considered to be favorable treatment, and then he coughed lightly. One more thing. When you arrive at the Duke of North Stuart's palace, I hope you can secretly inquire about the current Duke of Stuart. Eric didn't know what Duke Norton and Adele had said. After sending his mother back to the bedroom, he went to his room in a daze, locked himself in the room. From what his father had just said, he knew that he had been abandoned by his father. His expression gradually became ferocious. Why? A roar sounded in the room, as if venting anger. He was breathing heavily, and the hatred in his heart seemed to be overflowing. Just then a voice suddenly came from the front. You seem to need some help? End of chapter. Eric was startled and looked up. Then he saw a crow flying in through the gap in the window and then stopped in front of him. Crow? Eric was stunned. Could it be that the voice just now was spoken by this crow? He thought he must be crazy. Yes, I'm Crow, but I prefer people to call me Delic. The crow opened its mouth and made a clear human voice. Eric's eyes widened. He was not crazy. A crow could actually talk. What on earth are you? He was a little flustered and wanted to stay away from the crow. Could a talking crow be an ordinary thing? I told you, I'm Crow, you can call me Darich. Crow ignored Eric's panic and spoke to himself. I heard the conversation between you and your father. Your father seemed very disappointed in you. I can help you. The crow spoke slowly, like a devil tempting people to fall. I can help you become stronger than your father, and I can help you defeat that man named Lear. How about it? Want to try it? Chapter 36, The Evil Deeds of Lear Stuart. The room was filled with a decayed smell. The magic of the heretical law continued to pour into Eric's body. His skin gradually turned pale, and even his originally fiery red hair was stained with a gray filter. In the end, Eric was tempted by Crowdrike and chose to accept the power of corrupt laws. As the last of the corrupt law magic flowed into Eric's body, the crow let out a satisfied cry. Ever since he fled to the royal city of Brothile, he has been selecting people who can help him bring down his corrupt true form, and he has set his sights on Eric. His ugly appearance fits the style of the corrupt sect, and he has a prominent status as the son of a duke. Some things are more convenient to be done by the son of a great noble. From now on, you will be our corrupt believer, the new plague warlock. The crow flapped its wings. Eric opened his eyes and felt that his body was full of strength. His body, which had been depleted by the potion, regained its vitality. The power of the arcane laws had completely drained from him, and now only corruption remained. His level also returned to the intermediate level, intermediate plague warlock. Eric was a little disappointed. When he chose to accept the law of corruption, he was still wondering whether he would retain the law of arcane and become a dual law professional like Lear, but it was obvious that he was overthinking it. How did Lear do it? Don't be in a daze, feel the new power. I have given you power, and you must work for me. The crow chattered, I accept your power, but you promised that you could let me defeat Lear. Eric looked at the crow shook its wings in disdain. Of course, I would never deceive corrupt believers. Plague warlocks can gain power by spreading the plague. After every person infected with corruption is transformed into an undead, his life energy will be transferred to the plague warlock. As long as you continue to spread the corruption, you will soon reach a high level. By then, won't you be able to defeat a mid-level mage? Need to spread corruption? Eric was stunned, flipping through the information he obtained after changing his job to plague warlock. In his mind, his expression turned a little ugly. This method of increasing strength by spreading plague and devouring other people's lives was really too evil. You think it's evil? The crow sneered, there is no power in this world that can be obtained for no reason. Everything has a price. From the moment you choose to accept corruption, you should be prepared. Besides, this is the only way you can defeat that Lear. Eric was silent for several seconds, then his expression turned ferocious. As long as I can defeat Lear, I can do anything. Very good, I admire you. Then go and spread corruption, and you will fall in love with the power of corruption. The crow cackles, oh, by the way, don't use corrupt power in front of the people of the Golden Church, especially the Golden Saint, otherwise, I can't save you. Crow added, the Golden Saint. Eric thought of the woman he saw at the banquet that day. He suddenly raised his head and asked, is it really your corrupt sect that slandered the Golden Saint in the newspaper office? What? The crow was stunned. It's the story of Sister Ophanina, a heretic nun from a corrupt sect who liked little boys, said Eric. Crow was stunned. He knew Ophanina, which was the name of the saint, but what the hell was this heretical nun Ophanina from a corrupt sect? 10 minutes later, who the hell is this bastard who dares to insult our corrupt sect like this? The crow looked at the newspaper on the table and kept cursing in its beak. His body was trembling slightly with anger, and even some of his feathers were standing up. Darich was very angry that someone dared to publish such an article in the newspaper, slandering the Golden Saint and describing her as a heretical nun of their corrupt sect is simply unbearable. Is the disgusting aura of the Golden Saint worthy of being a nun of a corrupt sect? Darich, is there any need to be so angry? Eric was a little confused. Didn't you write the article that slandered the Golden Saint? Who told you that we wrote it? Crow Darich retorted on the spot, everyone thinks so. Apart from your corrupt sect, who would call the Golden Saint a corrupt nun? Eric said as a matter of course. Darich's eyes turned red. Not only did he describe the saint as their corrupt nun, but he also made their corrupt sect take the blame. It's really contrary to Tiangang. It has always been their paganism that has slandered others, so when did anyone dare to frame their corrupt sect? You really didn't write this. Seeing Darich's reaction, Eric also became a little suspicious. Of course not. I swear on the name of corrupt laws. Delic roared. Eric shrugged his shoulders. picked up the newspaper on the table, and read the contents. Suddenly, his eyes lit up. Since others can slander you, can I also slander others? He slammed the table. What are you talking about? Derek finally recovered from his anger and felt a little annoyed when he saw Eric jumping up and down. Eric smiled a sinister smile, and he took out a pen and paper and started writing directly on his notebook. Daily morning newspaper office, Ritter Street. The newspaper staff lay listlessly on the table. Ever since they published the story of the heretic nun Ophaniana, their newspaper had become deserted and few people dared to come to submit articles. The staff was somewhat helpless. Who knew that Ophelia was the name of the saint? If he knew what it was, he would not have published those articles. Just when the staff thought that today would be another day without any visitors, the door of the newspaper office was pushed open and the bell on the door jingled. He suddenly raised his head from his seat and saw a man wrapped in a coat. The scarf and sunglasses were almost exactly the same as the man who spent 5 gold coins to discredit the golden saint. It's just that the body shape is a little bit wrong. The person in front of me, whose face I can't see, is a fat man, with a crow standing on his shoulder. Excuse me, can I publish an article here? The fat man walked up to the newspaper employee and whispered. Hearing this, the employee's expression changed. Why does this sentence sound so familiar? After a pause of a few seconds, the clerk smiled professionally and said, Sure, sir. What kind of article would you like to publish? The fat man took out the article he had just written from the storage item and handed it to the clerk. The clerk took it carefully and glanced at the title. Frowny face, the unknown secret of the Stuart family. The clerk's eyes twitched slightly. He seemed to have seen such a title somewhere not long ago. He turned to the next page. Frowny face, imprisoning the princess? Lear Stuart's evil deeds. The clerk wiped the sweat from his forehead and flipped through all the articles, all of which were slandering the Stuart family, especially Lear Stuart. Something like Lear communicated with the heretical gods and thus gained the power of the double law, and that Lear imprisoned and humiliated the princess. But isn't the princess Lear's fiancée? Why is she imprisoned, sir? We cannot publish these articles. As you know, Lear Stuart is a great nobleman in the kingdom. It will cause trouble if we defame him. The clerk put down the articles tremblingly. Why not? Didn't you discredit the golden saint before? The fat man said with some dissatisfaction. Sir, that was our mistake. We didn't know the saint's name. I'll give you 5 gold coins. The fat man didn't want to listen to the clerk's explanation and just took out the money again. The staff thought they were going crazy. Although they discredited the saint last time, she actually did not make things difficult for them, and they indeed earned 5 gold coins. And now again, the clerk was sure that he was moved, but that Lear Stuart was the heir to the Stuart family. The newspaper office fell silent for a long time. Just when the fat man was getting impatient, the clerk showed an ugly smile and said, Sir, we can publish these articles, but you have to pay more. Chapter 37. I'm not a pervert. What's the point of doing all this? Imprisoning the princess? They are an engaged couple. Coming out of the newspaper office, Delicky was chattering. He had also observed Lear, but later gave up because of the other's appearance. He was too handsome to be a corrupt believer. Derek, you don't know that the princess is missing. Eric had a smug smile on his face. This matter was concealed by His Majesty the King. I only knew about it because my father told me. Lear must not know it. What if after the article is published, someone goes to His Majesty to verify it and finds out that the princess is missing? Will anyone believe what is written in the article? Not only will Lear's fiancée be missing, but he will also be suspected of imprisoning her. Eric kept talking, smiling, as if he had already seen Lear's expression at that time. Delicky shook his feathers. Even if I'm suspected, what can I do? We can find out if the princess is imprisoned by searching. It has no impact on Lear at all. The smile on Eric's face slowly faded, and he nodded. Maybe, but as long as I can make Lear suffer, that's enough. This is just an appetizer. When I break through to a higher level, I will personally crush him under my feet. Early in the morning, Lear climbed out of bed and Eno curled up in the quilt. The little maid was very tired last night. The life of the nobility is always so decadent and luxurious, and Lear has begun to like this feeling. After getting dressed, covering Eno with a blanket and walking out of the room, he saw Milia again. The little princess's cheeks turned red, but this time she didn't glare at Lear. Milia is not ready to completely give herself to Lear. Although she was almost eaten by Lear when she was imprisoned before, the situation is different now. She is Lear's fiancée and no longer a prisoner. Lear will respect some of her ideas, and she is very happy. So he turned a blind eye to the affairs of Lear and Eno. There are always times when men can't hold back. At least she still likes Eno. It is better to let Eno take care of Lear's physical needs than for Lear to go out and find a woman. My dear princess, how can you bear to drive your husband to the maid's room late at night? Lear walked up to Milia with a smile and hugged the girl in his arms. Milia blushed and felt that she had gone too far. After a while, she whispered, Lear, can you give me some more time? Lear smiled and kissed Milia's cheek. Then I'll wait a little longer. It has been a while since he traveled into the game. At first, he thought it was a game, but as time went on, he felt more and more that this was a real world. The game cabin in the previous life might just be a medium for communicating with another world. Isn't this the setting in many novels? So his attitude towards NPCs like Milia and Eno has changed. He really likes cute and easy to bully princesses like Milia. After spending some time with Milia, Lear came to the reception room, where the maid told him that a guest had arrived. When he walked into the living room, he saw a familiar face. Raising an eyebrow in surprise, he walked over. The person who came was Jim, the liar he met before the duel in the Kingdom Arena. He had said before that he was willing to recruit the other party, but there was no movement for so many days, and he thought Jim had no intention of helping him. You can come here, it seems that you have made a decision. Lear walked over to Jim and sat down. Yes, Master Lear, it's my honor to serve you. Jim knelt down and said flatteringly. Lear smiled. He was not surprised by Jim's behavior. Working for the Stuart family was not a shameful thing. Instead, it was an honorable thing, which was the case for most civilians in the kingdom. Stuart's reputation has long been deeply rooted in people's hearts. Even though he has been belittled many times by Duke Norton, as long as the lion still lingers on the border, no one dares to underestimate Stuart's power. Very good, since you have made your choice, you must accept my test. I will not easily accept the allegiance of an ordinary person. Lear took out a gold coin from the storage ring and placed it on the table. Help me find someone. Her name should be Anna, a girl around 10 years old. Find her and tell me her news. Don't disturb her life. This gold coin is your reward. Jim looked at the gold coins on the table and swallowed. As expected of a great nobleman, his spending is equal to an ordinary family's annual income. When he cheated people in the past, he could only earn 5 or 6 gold coins a year if he was lucky, and if he cheated a noble he had to hide away for a while. Now he can earn 1 gold coin as long as he finds one person. I will definitely complete the task you assigned to me. Jim nodded immediately and decided to follow Lear. Take this gold coin. Lear pushed the gold coin in front of Jim. Jim was stunned. His mission hadn't even started yet, but he was given money directly? This is your advance payment. Jim was silent for a while, looking at the gold coins on the table. After a while, he said, Aren't you afraid that I will just run away with the money? Why should I be afraid? Lear laughed. It's just a gold coin. If you take it, I will just lose a gold coin, but you will lose the opportunity to become a part of Stuart. Having said that, Lear stopped talking. A red light flashed in his silent eyes, and an illusory blood mark merged into Jim's body. A skill from the blood hunter that can track down the marked person. I marked Jim not because I was reluctant to spend the gold coin, but because I wanted to try out the effect of the skill. Okay, go down. You only have a week. Lear waved his hand, signaling Jim to leave. After Jim left, Lear got dressed and prepared to go out. The person he asked Jim to find was related to a quest. He had only read the text guide for this quest and was not sure about the specific location of the NPC. So he gave the task to Jim, wanting to test his ability. The reward for the mission is a legal relic that can seal the legal power, which is very good. With this, he could consider taking action against the saint. By capturing her and sealing her abilities, he could then, Lear slapped himself. Why did he always want to kidnap the saint and take her home? I am obviously not the kind of pervert who likes to imprison young girls and play shame plays with them. It was the same thing yesterday in the slums. He also thought about tying up Ophelia. Fortunately, his reason prevailed over his thoughts in the end. I always feel something is wrong. Could it be that the golden finger can influence his thoughts on those carriers of the source of law? Chapter 38. My father asked me to be your lover. It was already afternoon when Lear walked out of the house. As soon as he walked out of the house, a carriage drove towards his villa. The carriage was engraved with a flame-like family crest, that is the Norton family crest. The carriage stopped in front of the gate and a girl got out of the carriage. It was Adele. Lear raised his eyebrows. It seemed that he couldn't leave again. In the living room, Eno looked at the two people sitting opposite each other with some surprise. One is the heir of Stuart, and the other is the daughter of the Duke of Norton. They should have an incompatible relationship, but they sat together. She smelled a hint of adultery. Why are you here? Does Duke Norton know? Lear asked after taking a sip of the black tea brewed by Eno. You asked me to find out about my father's situation before, so I came here. Adele said in a low voice, feeling a little embarrassed. Eno's ears moved, as if he heard some incredible secret. His young master could actually make the Duke of Norton's daughter listen to him. So you have found out about your father's recent actions? Lear was a little surprised. Adele acted quite quickly, but Adele's next words shocked him. Father, he wants me to be your lover. Lear was stunned, and Eno beside him also covered his mouth. Do you know what you are talking about? Lear frowned. I know. Adele nodded. Lear shook his head. This looked like a conspiracy of the Duke of Norton. Why would your father, Duke Norton, want you to be my lover? He hopes that I can find out some news about the Duke of Stuart. Adele did not hide anything and directly told him the Duke of Norton's instructions. Lear stared at the other person. Under the perception of the blood law source, Adele was not lying, giving his daughter to him just to find out about his father? What did the Duke of Norton want to do? He walked over to Adele and stared at the somewhat nervous girl. The Duke of Norton's intention is not known for the time being, but he unexpectedly feels that Adele does not seem to be averse to being his lover. Lear did not sense any resistance from the girl. He raised his eyebrows, stretched out his hand to lift the girl's chin, and leaned down. Your father asked you to be my lover. What do you think? Adele's cheeks were rosy, and she looked at Lear's face without saying a word. The two were very close, and Lear could smell the sweet aroma of Adele. She showed no resistance at all, and through the source of the blood law, he could even sense some desire. Lear believed that he could tear Adele's clothes off as long as he wanted and then enjoy that beautiful body that would really solidify his reputation of attacking Eric's sister. He greedily sniffed the scent of Adele. After he became the disseminator of blood, he became particularly sensitive to the smell of blood. When he was intimate with Eno, he would unconsciously suck the blood of the little maid, and he also had this desire when he was with Milia. The blood of a pure girl is especially sweet. The Adele in front of me is a pure girl. He immediately grabbed Adele's hand and bit her neck. Since the other party came to the door, it would be a good idea to have a taste. Adele was pressed against the sofa, feeling the faint tingling sensation in her neck, feeling a little shy and a little excited. Eno's face turned red as she watched this scene, and her pair of white thighs kept crossing each other. The little maid touched her neck, as if she was thinking of what Lear had done to her last night. The act of sucking blood lasted for a minute, and Lear let go of Adele's hand. Adele slumped on the couch and thought about what was going to happen next, but she had no regrets. But after a while, Lear did not turn into a beast as she had imagined. Lear sat on the sofa on the other side, holding Eno in his arms, and smelling the scent of the girl. Adele gasped and looked at Lear. Why stop in this situation? Shouldn't I tear her clothes to shreds and then possess her mercilessly? Am I worse than a maid? The girl suddenly felt a little resentful. Lear smiled. He vaguely sensed Adele's thoughts. She was really willing to be his lover. Is it because of the Duke of Norton? Or is it because I am too handsome? Lear was a little confused. He remembered that apart from the banquet, he had no interaction with Eric's sister. He looked at Adele and said tentatively, you should love yourself more. If you choose to commit yourself to me because of Duke Norton, then there is no need to do so. It's not because of my father. Adele retorted immediately, with shyness yet seriousness in the girl's eyes. I like you. You may not know this, but I was attracted to you the first time I saw you. Every time my father took me to a party, I would pay attention to you. And this is the first time I'm doing such an intimate thing with a man, and I'm clean. Adele said again, as if she was afraid that Lear would think she was a loose woman. Lear was stunned for a moment. In his perception of the source of blood law, these were all true. The daughter of an enemy with whom I have no connection actually likes me, and it was love at first sight. Do I have such great charm? Is it possible that I have succubus bloodline? Lear was silent, not knowing what to say for a moment. Seeing that Lear had been silent, Adele felt a little anxious. She simply came directly to Lear, hugged Lear's neck, and kissed Lear on his lips. You were so tough when you bit me just now. Why are you so indifferent now? She panted, looking straight into Lear's eyes. Have you always been so bold? Lear raised his eyebrows. If he didn't take action against the little Aries who came to him so proactively, he would be looked down upon. Don't you like it? Adele licked her lips. That beautiful appearance made Lear's blood boil. With a cry of surprise, he picked up the girl and said, "You have no chance to regret it." With that, he carried Adele to the bedroom. The fight lasted until night, and even Eno was pulled in to put an end to the fighting. Only after both of them fell into a deep sleep did Lear get dressed and glance at the next room. Milia probably didn't know that he had learned his lesson and would cast a soundproof spell before doing anything. Looking at the two people on the bed, I experienced the hugs from both sides, which I had never experienced in my previous life, but I experienced it after traveling through time. He shook his head, and when he was getting ready, the task panel suddenly popped up in front of him. The third ring of the revival of blood. Corruption has spread faith in the royal city. As a spreader of blood, how can you indulge in pleasure and remain indifferent? Mission objective: improve the spread of the blood law and make it known to more people. Current progress: 1%, quest reward, 200,000 experience points, blood swirl, failure penalty, curse of the Lord of Blood, task time limit, 30 days. Chapter 39. The Blood Apostle appears. Lear almost forgot that there was still the task of revival. He hadn't come to the third ring since he completed the second ring last time, and he thought that the Lord of Blood had given him a holiday. After taking a look at the contents on the task panel, Lear was speechless. Increase the spread of blood law. If he remembered correctly, the law of blood was a heretical law. Now the Golden Saint was clearing out the corrupt law believers in the royal city. If he wanted to share some of the pressure with the corrupt sects, he could give it a try. He sighed helplessly. Ever since he knew that Adele was the only blood believer in the entire royal city besides him, he felt that the Lord of Blood was a little out of touch, but the task still needs to be done. How to increase the spread of blood law? He began to think the most direct way is to conduct a blood-granting ceremony and directly convert the other party into a believer. But under the current vigilance of the Golden Church, it is difficult for blood believers created in this way to survive. It was impossible for him to bring the converted blood believers back home. If he left them outside, he would be a lamb to be slaughtered unless he was smart. Is there any other way? His gaze fell on the prisoner's face in blood that had turned into a ring on his finger, and gradually his eyes lit up slightly. The royal city of Brayfield seemed a little deserted at night. Because of the corrupt sect, many citizens would go straight home and close the door at night. That's a heretical sect. I heard that it spreads an incurable disease. Several people have died in the slums. On the dark street, a girl was walking home with a backpack. She was a student at the Arcane Academy, but she was not a noble. She was just a child from an ordinary citizen's family. After she awakened the arcane law, her father decided to send her to the Arcane Academy. Even though it would cost a lot of money today, she forgot the time because she was studying spells, so she left the academy very late. The girl looked at the dim road and felt a little nervous. She had heard about what happened in the slums. The heretical sects were really scary, but that was in the slums, far away from her home, so it shouldn't be a problem, right? Just as the girl was thinking, she heard the sound of flapping wings. She looked up and saw a crow standing on a branch, staring at her. Its dark green eyes looked particularly scary at night. She glanced at the crow and then looked away in fear, walking forward carefully, but as she walked, the crow's gaze also moved. The girl couldn't stand it anymore, so she stopped and said naively and cutely, "Mr. Crow, I want to go home. Can you please stop staring at me?" Hearing this, the crow was stunned for a moment. It didn't expect that the target would take the initiative to talk to it before it made a move. Could it be that its brain was not working well? It flapped its wings and grinned. "No way. I have finally found such an excellent mother like you." "Mother?" The girl was stunned for a moment, and after a few seconds, her eyes widened. The crow actually spoke. As she looked on in disbelief, the crow's feathers trembled, and finally it turned into a human figure. A foul smell hit me in the face. The person in front of me was wearing a dark robe, and his exposed arms were wrapped in dirty bandages. Even his head was wrapped up, leaving only one eye exposed. There were maggots crawling on the eyes. Ah! A shrill scream rang out in the darkness. In the alley not far away, a demon-like person was wandering in the darkness. With bright red eyes, a ferocious face, and terrifying horns, it was Lear wearing a bloody prisoner mask. He thought of a way to complete the task and decided to try it out late at night. To increase the popularity of the blood law, all we need to do is make the blood law known to people. It can be a good reputation or a bad reputation. All he had to do was find some roving ruffians and thugs at night, demonstrate the power of blood, punish them, and then leave behind the name of blood law. They came several times a day, and after so many times, the gangsters spread the story by word of mouth and it became an urban legend in the royal city. That's how it's written in the stories, some heretical demon in the middle of the night or something like that. Maybe it will even be written in the newspaper. As for whether anyone would join his blood cult now that his reputation has been ruined, this is not a big deal. Normal NPCs will not join a cult unless they want to die. Those who really want to spread the faith of blood have to wait for players to come. He had been walking on the street for a while but saw no one. Just when he was about to look somewhere else, a scream suddenly came from not far away. Listening to the screams not far away, a smile appeared on Lear's face under the prison mask. Isn't this a chance to live? On the dim street, the terrifying bandaged man walked towards the girl step by step. The girl had collapsed on the ground and was so scared that she couldn't speak. Don't be afraid, and don't be sad. You will become the nourishment rewarded by the corrupt true spirit. This is your honor. The bandaged man looked at the girl and thought that the best way to spread the corruption disease was to infect a mother body and cultivate the bacteria in the other body. When the corruption bacteria reached its limit, the mother body exploded, and a large number of corruption bacteria would spread. The matrix hadn't fully matured before in the slums, but he couldn't help but detonate it, so the effect wasn't very good. A fully mature mother can cover the entire ghetto. What kind of monster are you? Don't come over here. The girl finally reacted, got up from the ground and tried to escape. Without even picking up her backpack, she ran in the opposite direction, but as she ran, a figure appeared in front of her. She was delighted and shouted, "Sir, please save me, there is a..." As she spoke, she ran towards the shadow, but when she saw the shadow's face clearly, her voice stopped abruptly. This was a man wearing a black robe, who looked similar to the bandaged man behind him, but he did not have such a disgusting stench. However, the face of the man in the black robe was like a legendary devil. Its eyes flashed a ferocious red light, it had twisted horns on its head, and blood-red lines on its face. The girl stopped and collapsed to the ground again. Not only was there one monster, but there was another one. Just when the girl was feeling a little desperate, the demon monster in front of her suddenly spoke in a gentle voice, "Beautiful lady, you seem to need some help?" "Ha!" The girl was stunned for a moment and raised her head. She had already imagined that she was captured by a monster and subjected to an evil ritual, but why was the monster in front of her a little different? "Do you need help?" Lear stretched out his hand. Unlike the ferocious look on his head, his hands were as white as a woman's. "Mr. Monster, you won't eat me?" "Why should I eat you?" "That's what the Academy library says. Monsters from heretical sects appear at night and like to eat people." Lear was silent. What kind of a storybook was this? He coughed lightly. "Not all heretics are bad people." "But, Mr. Monster, I'm not a monster, I'm the Apostle of Blood. I also have a name. You can call me Munger." Chapter 40 Carrion Giant. The girl paused, listening to the words of the monster in front of her, and she suddenly found that she was not so scared anymore. The person in front of her had a ferocious face, but he gave her a very gentle feeling. "Well, monster, Mr. Munger, you really won't eat me?" "I don't eat humans. In fact, I was once a human, but I was cursed by blood. The law of blood turned me into this. If you want to lift the curse, you must atone your sins, so I will appear at night to help those in need." Lear babbled nonsense and made up jokes that even he found funny, but the girl listened very carefully and even looked a little sympathetic. This kind of naive girl is really easy to deceive. Lear looked at her calmly. While the two were talking, the bandaged man had already come to their side. Lear raised his head. The aura emanating from the other party was exactly the same as the corrupt force in the slums before. "I didn't expect to run into corrupt believers doing things just by going out. Is this the guidance of fate? That's my prey." The bandaged man stared at the devil in front of him with his exposed one eye. He felt a force of law from the other party that he had never felt before. Another heretical law. The girl was startled by the voice of the bandaged man and quickly hid behind Lil's large body. She didn't even notice that she had already developed trust in the monster in front of her named Munger. "Mr. Mung, if helping me can help you remove the curse, please save me, he wants to take me away." The girl looked at the bandaged man timidly and pleaded in a low voice, "Trigger mission, girl's request, C rank, the poor girl asks you for help. Please help her escape the capture of corrupt believers. Quest reward, 50,000 experience points, intermediate blood apostle skills, failure penalty, none." Lear raised his eyebrows. There was actually a mission, and the reward was an intermediate blood apostle skill. Since he obtained the basic blood apostle skill last time, he had not seen other blood apostle skills. Pagans, hand this girl over to me. We are all heretics, there is no need to fight each other. The bandaged man said coldly. Lear smiled, and a flash of red light flashed in the eyes of the blood prisoner. The night rose appeared in his hand and directly entered the invisible state. Don't compare me to dirty corruption. I am an apostle of blood, and I don't care about sewer bugs like you. You said I'm a bedbug? The bandaged man's eyes twitched and he became angry. You are the apostle of blood. Blood will also corrupt. Everything in this world will decay. The world will eventually fall to the power of corruption. Such a great law, and you actually call me a stink bug? The bandaged man looked a little crazy, which Lear found difficult to understand. The taste of corruption is truly eternal. You damned blood believer, how dare you blaspheme corruption? Then become nourishment for the arrival of the corrupt spirit. The bandaged man suddenly pulled open his robe. Countless dirty mosquitoes and flies flew out from under the robe, covering the sky like a black cloud. Looking at this scene, Lear frowned. He had never seen such a disgusting way of attack even in his previous life. He picked up the girl and dodged the black fog of mosquitoes and flies. The heretic in front of him was close to high level in terms of magic power, and was a good opponent. He put the girl down and said, "You stay here. I will deal with this corrupt believer." After saying that, he walked towards the bandaged man. He has never used the skills of the blood apostle since he acquired them, so this is a good opportunity for him to practice on this corrupt cultist. A red light flashed in his eyes, and the blood resonance allowed him to briefly possess the power to control blood. These mosquitoes and flies in the air were not magical creations condensed by magic power, but real creatures. Although they were different from humans, they also had blood. Pale red ripples spread out from his body, and the buzzing mosquitoes and flies suddenly stopped. The next second, it seemed like rain in the sky, and drops of dirty liquid flowed down strangely and not red, but a dirty yellowed. It was easy for Lear to manipulate the blood in these weak mosquitoes and flies. The bandaged man's eyes widened when he saw this. What did you do to my children? Child, Lear frowned. The corrupt believers were more twisted than he had imagined. The mosquitoes and flies that lost their blood also lost their lives, and fell from the sky one by one. The bandaged man's eyes were bloodshot. You damned blood believer! I will turn you into food for my child. He roared, and deadly black fog emerged from his body, covering the corpses of mosquitoes and flies on the ground. The next moment, the black fog gradually condensed and turned into a giant more than 5 meters tall. His entire body was covered in bandages and black rotten flesh. He still had one eye, and his body was crawling with maggots, which made him look uncomfortable. However, although it is disgusting and ugly, the giant's magic level has reached a higher level and has reached a high level. Watching this scene, Lear gained a new understanding of the corrupt law. Although it was disgusting, it had to be said that it was still very powerful. It was the black cloud of mosquitoes and flies just now. It was obvious that they were carrying toxins and diseases. Ordinary law professionals could not get close to them at all. A mage might be better, as he can use fire, and now this rotten giant has given the bandaged man powerful close combat capabilities. It can be far or near, and it can be ranked among the many professions that Lear has seen in his previous life. The carrion giant came crashing down upon Lear, bringing with it an unbearable stench. Lear turned sideways and dodged. The night rose pierced the body of the carrion giant, and there was a sense of damping from the sword, as if it had pierced a piece of rubber. Piercing damage reduction. In just a moment, he determined the characteristics of the carrion giant. The expression under the prisoner's mask became a little gloomy. This characteristic can be said to be a nightmare for melee professionals using light weapons. After one blow was broken off, the carrion giant smashed its arm down again, hitting the ground and shattering the marble floor. Lear dodged to a nearby place, and the place where the carrion giant had been pierced had healed, and even his health bar had recovered. It actually has a strong recovery ability. It's a bit tricky. A wizard should be able to deal with such an opponent by using fire, but Lear only knows ice spells, and the most he can do is freeze the opponent. Even the arcane cannon only has a momentary impact, and it is difficult to completely destroy the giant's body. Is he going to run away with the girl? Lear's eyes became deep. Running away was not his habit. This giant state would not last long, and, since puncture is ineffective, use brute force. A bright red chain appeared in Lear's hand. The blood apostle's skill was life-binding shackles. The chains were directly wrapped around the giant, and by the way, Lear also put a blood mark on the giant to increase the damage of the next second. All attributes were added to strength, and he dragged the giant and threw him directly into the night sky. The devil grabbed the chain, bound the giant, drew a semicircle in the air, and slammed the giant to the ground. The violent impact shook the trees not far away. The bandaged man inside the giant was dizzy from the shock. Is this the power that a mid-level professional can possess? The life-binding shackles not only bound the giant, but also devoured the giant's vitality. A smile appeared on Lear's face under the prisoner's mask. Just when he was about to attack again, a holy sword fell from the sky.